So you've built a life across two worlds. You've done the right thing, you've got a solid will drafted by a great lawyer in the US. But here's the thing. That will is practically useless when it comes to your flat in Mumbai or your family land in Punjab. For non-resident Indians, this is a massive, and I mean a massive gap in their planning. And today, we're going to fix that. Let's dive in. And listen, this isn't just some theoretical legal problem. This is real. This quote from Rajesh, an NRI whose family is literally living a legal nightmare right now. It says it all. His father's entire estate is frozen, their savings completely inaccessible, all because of this one little gap. Let's just cut to the chase. You have your US will all buttoned up, covering your assets in America. But the second you try to apply that to your property in India, it hits a brick wall. That home in Mumbai, that piece of your legacy, right now, it's totally exposed. So how can this be? Why does this happen? Well, it all comes down to a really fundamental legal principle about property. Let's get into exactly why local law always wins.
The fancy term you need to know is Lex Situs. It's Latin for law of the place. But what it really means is simple. When it comes to property you can't move, like land or an apartment, the only laws that matter are the laws of the country where that property is physically located. So for your Indian property, Indian law's the boss, period. It doesn't matter where you live or where your will was made.
And here's where things get a little tricky, because Indian law draws a really sharp line in the sand. For your immovable property, land, flats, you name it, Indian law, that Lex Situs principle, is in charge. But for your movable stuff, your bank accounts, your stocks, even jewelry, it's the law of your domicile, basically where you officially live, that applies. And this split is what causes so much confusion. Okay, so we get the law, but what does this actually look like in the real world if you don't have a specific Indian will? Well, this is where the story goes from a legal headache to an absolute financial nightmare. So let's ask the question plainly. What are we really talking about here? What's the damage in terms of actual money and lost time? The numbers are just staggering. Looking at real cases like Rajesh's, to settle a pretty standard estate of around 2.2 crores, you're looking at a cost of over 15 lakh rupees at a minimum. That's money that should be going to your family, not disappearing into the system. So where does all that cash go? Well, court fees will skim 2 to 3% of your estate's value right off the top. Then lawyer fees can take another 2 to 5%. Throw in costs for newspaper ads and getting foreign documents authenticated, and you're watching 5 to 7% of your entire legacy just vanish. And the timeline? Your family could be stuck in legal limbo for 18 to 36 months. That's up to 3 years of their lives on hold. Now, a lot of people hear this and think, I'm covered. I added a nominee to my bank account. I have to tell you, this is probably one of the most dangerous misconceptions out there. A nominee is not an owner. Right, this is the crucial point, so listen close. A nominee is just a caretaker, a trustee. They have the legal right to collect the asset from the institution, but their job is to then hand it over to the true legal heir. And who decides the legal heir? Your will. Your will always, and I mean always, trumps a nomination. Relying only on nominations is basically just setting your family up for a future fight. Okay, so we've laid out the problem. It's complicated, it's expensive, but the good news is the solution is actually pretty elegant and smart. It's called the two-will solution. Here's how this works in the real world. You create 2 separate wills, one just for India and one for everything else. This lets you run things in parallel. The Indian will can get started in the Indian courts right away without having to wait for your US will to clear probate there. It saves a ton of time and money. Plus, it keeps your global assets private because you don't have to disclose them to an Indian court. But, and this is a huge but, there is one critical detail you cannot miss. Most wills have a standard line that says this will cancels all previous wills. If you have that, one will could accidentally wipe out the other. To make this strategy work, each will must have a special jurisdiction and non-revocation clause. It basically says, hey, this Indian will is only for Indian assets and it doesn't touch my foreign will, and vice versa. This is not a do-it-yourself project. It needs to be drafted by an expert. Now, the best part of all this, you don't even have to fly to India to get this done. You can put this entire plan in motion from right where you are. Here's a quick guide on how. It's a really clear 4-step process. First, you work with an Indian lawyer, remotely, to get the will drafted correctly. Second, you sign it in your country of residence with 2 witnesses. Third, you get it apostilled. Now, think of that as like an international notary stamp that makes the document legally valid in India. And finally, step 4, you appoint someone in India with a power of attorney to go and register the will for you. Done. Now, for those of you with larger estates, a will is really just the first step. Let's look at some more advanced strategies and some new trends that are really changing the game. Look, if your assets in India are worth over 1 crore, you should seriously start thinking about a private family trust. A trust is an incredibly powerful tool. It lets you transfer your assets to your family completely outside of the court and probate system. It is the ultimate solution for speed, privacy, and control. Now, you're probably thinking, a trust sounds expensive. And yes, it does have a higher upfront cost. But when you remember that you could lose 5 to 7% of your entire estate in probate fees down the road, that initial investment in a trust often pays for itself many, many times over. It's an investment in certainty for your family. And if we look to the future, things are actually set to get a bit easier. India's market regulator, SEBI, is working hard to make digital succession smoother, which is fantastic news for all NRIs. The proposals for 2026 are looking to make nomination the automatic default for new investment accounts, which is great. They also plan to let you have up to 4 nominees, which helps align things with banking rules. These are all good steps forward. But, and this is the crucial part, it still doesn't replace the need for a will. The will is still king. All right, we've covered a ton of ground, so let's boil it all down and focus on the absolute key things you need to walk away with today. If you remember nothing else from this explainer, remember these 3 things. 1. Lex Situs is real. Your foreign will does not work for your Indian property. 2. The 2-will strategy is the gold standard for a reason. It's the cleanest, most efficient solution. And 3. A nominee is a caretaker, not the owner. Your will is what decides who truly inherits. So we'll end with this question. You worked so hard to build a legacy that spans continents. Isn't it time to make sure it's actually protected in both worlds? Taking action now, getting a proper Indian will or trust set up, that isn't just a legal task. It's probably the most important thing you can do for your family's future.